On the outside, the Harris family looked like something out of a holiday card. A neat white house with blue shutters sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac in suburban Ohio. The lawn was perfectly trimmed, the flower beds tidy, and every Christmas the porch glowed with carefully hung lights that neighbors often admired. Michael Harris, the father, was the kind of man people described as charming. At neighborhood gatherings, he shook hands firmly, laughed loudly, and told stories that made him sound like the most successful, hard-working family man anyone had ever met. He was a regional manager at a big company, wore crisp suits, and never forgot to remind others of how much he had accomplished. Beside him, his wife, Anna, always smiled politely, her hands folded neatly in front of her. She looked the part of the supportive spouse, quiet, graceful, and endlessly agreeable. To everyone else, she seemed lucky, married to a man who provided a comfortable life, 2 healthy children, and a beautiful home. Their kids, Emily, 13, and Jacob, 9, were well-dressed, polite, and always reminded by their father to say yes, sir, and thank you, ma'am. To outsiders, the Harris family was the portrait of American success, stable, respectable, enviable. But behind the closed doors of that perfect White House, things were very different. Michael's charm had an expiration date. At home, the warmth vanished, replaced with cold criticism. He demanded perfection from everyone. Anna's cooking had to be just right, the kids' grades had to be flawless, and the house had to look spotless at all times. When Anna set a plate of pasta on the table one evening, Michael took a single bite, put his fork down with a clatter, and sighed heavily. "Is it really that hard, Anna?" he muttered. "You've had all day, and you still can't make a decent meal. My mother would never have let me eat something this bland." Anna's cheeks flushed, but she said nothing. Emily and Jacob sat frozen in their seats, eyes lowered to their plates. They had learned early on that speaking up only made things worse. Michael's control wasn't only in words, it was in silence too. When he was displeased, he would go days without speaking to Anna, giving her nothing but a sharp glance or a slammed door. She would scramble to fix whatever had upset him, but the goalpost always seemed to move. With the kids, Michael's expectations were sky-high. When Emily brought home a report card with all A's and 1 B+, Michael didn't congratulate her. Instead, he leaned across the table and said, "Do you think colleges care about almost perfect? You'll never get anywhere if you settle for less." Emily's heart sank. She had worked so hard, stayed up late studying, but in that moment, all she felt was small. Jacob, only 9, tried to stay in his father's good graces by making silly jokes at the table, but Michael often shut him down too. "Stop interrupting, Jacob. No one wants to hear nonsense." The boy's face fell, and his laughter turned into silence. To the outside world, Michael was the picture of success. At home, he was a storm everyone tiptoed around. Anna often told herself, "He just wants the best for us. He's stressed from work. If I try harder, if I keep the house cleaner, cook better, stay quieter, maybe he'll be kind again." But those kind moments rarely came, and when they did, like when Michael suddenly bought her a necklace or praised her cooking in front of friends, they felt more like performances than genuine affection. The kids noticed it too. Emily once whispered to her mother after a dinner party, "Why does Dad act so nice to other people but never to us?" Anna's eyes watered, but she forced a smile. "That's just how he is, sweetheart." Inside, though, she knew something wasn't right. The truth was, Michael thrived on control. He loved admiration from others, but at home, admiration wasn't enough. He needed obedience, perfection, and power. And slowly, piece by piece, the Harris family was learning how to shrink themselves to fit his world. Anna tucked away her dreams of going back to school for interior design. Emily stopped sharing her art, afraid her father would criticize her drawings. Jacob grew quieter each day, his playful spirit dimming under the weight of disapproval. The house looked perfect. The family looked perfect. But inside, cracks were beginning to spread through the glass. It was on a Sunday morning that Emily first realized her father's rules didn't just live inside their house, they followed her everywhere. She was at her best friend Chloe's birthday party, sitting at the kitchen table with a slice of cake in front of her. Chloe's mom leaned over and asked warmly, "Emily, would you like some ice cream with that?" Emily hesitated. At home, sweets were a battlefield. Her father had strict rules about sugar, 1 dessert a week, no exceptions. Here, surrounded by balloons and laughter, she saw every other child happily saying yes. So she nodded. "Yes, please." Chloe's mom smiled and scooped some onto her plate. Emily felt a small spark of joy, until she caught her father's eyes across the room. He was standing near the doorway, his arms crossed, his smile stiff. That evening, in the car ride home, the storm came. "You think you can just do whatever you want? Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was?" I said no ice cream, and there you were, stuffing your face like you've never eaten before. Emily's cheeks burned. But, Dad, it was just. Don't talk back to me. Michael's voice boomed, echoing in the car. You made me look like a fool in front of everyone. You want people to think I can't even control my own daughter? Emily bit her lip so hard she tasted blood. Jacob shrank into his seat, wide-eyed. Anna stared silently out the window, her hands clenched tight in her lap. It wasn't about the ice cream. It was never about the ice cream. Michael had a way of twisting things, of making the smallest choices feel like betrayals. When Anna once suggested repainting the living room a lighter color, Michael smirked. Why do you always want to change things? Think you know better than me? You'd ruin this house if I let you make decisions. Jacob spilled juice on the carpet. Michael didn't call it an accident. He called it carelessness. You can't even hold a cup right? No wonder no one takes you seriously. Even when Anna tried to stand up for the kids, Michael, he's only 9, Michael would turn on her instead. Of course you'd take their side. You never respect me. Do you have any idea how hard I work, and this is the thanks I get? A wife who undermines me in front of my children? By the end of such fights, Anna always found herself apologizing. Not because she was wrong, but because it was easier than fueling his rage. The children began to live in two worlds. At school, Emily laughed with her friends, handed in her homework on time, and seemed like any other teenager. But at home, she walked carefully, choosing her words with caution, holding her breath whenever she saw the shift in her father's face. Jacob, once the family clown, became quieter, his jokes reserved for his classmates. At home, he spoke less and less, afraid of being told he was too much. And Anna, she became invisible. She learned how to keep her voice soft, how to smooth over Michael's outbursts, how to fold her pain neatly behind the smile she showed to the neighbors. From the outside, their family still looked perfect. But inside, each of them was slowly disappearing. What hurt the most wasn't always the shouting, it was the way Michael could make them question their own reality. When Anna tried to remind him of something he had said the night before, he would scoff. Are you serious? Imagining things again. Never said that. God, Anna, you're so dramatic. Emily told him his words hurt her. He shook his head. You're too sensitive. Toughen up, Emily. The world doesn't care about your feelings. And when Jacob quietly admitted that he felt scared sometimes, Michael laughed. Scared? What do you have to be scared about? You've got a roof over your head, food on the table, and a father who works himself to the bone. You should be grateful. Their feelings were dismissed, their voices silenced, their reality denied. That was the power Michael held. It wasn't just control of the house, it was control of the truth itself. But cracks, no matter how small, always grow. One evening, after another argument about the children's homework, Emily slipped into her room and closed the door. She sat at her desk, staring at her drawings, sketches of trees, faces, and dreamlike places she wished she could escape to. She picked up a pencil and wrote 3 words in the corner of the page. It's not me. For the first time, she wondered if maybe she wasn't the problem after all. Though she didn't know it yet, that thought, the seed of doubt, was the beginning of everything that would change. Nights in the Harris home were the heaviest. By day, Michael's voice filled the air, commands, criticisms, lectures. But at night, when the house finally grew quiet, that silence felt louder than anything. Anna often lay awake long after Michael had fallen asleep beside her. He would turn his back to her, his even breathing filling the room, while she stared at the ceiling with tears she dared not let fall. She remembered the girl she used to be, the one who loved painting, who dreamed of opening her own design studio, who laughed freely and spoke her mind. That girl felt like a ghost now, trapped under layers of exhaustion and fear. Sometimes she whispered into the dark, maybe tomorrow will be better. But deep down, she no longer believed it. Emily had her own way of carrying the weight. She used to leave her sketchbooks out in the living room, proudly showing her mother and brother the drawings she made after school. But now, she hides them in a box under her bed. Every time she put pencil to paper, she heard her father's voice in her head. Pointless. You think anyone makes a living from doodling? Focus on something real, Emily. Something that matters. So she stopped sharing. Her art became secret, her joy tucked away like contraband. At school, her teachers praised her for her creativity, but when they suggested she enter a competition, Emily shook her head. "No, my dad says it's not important." Her teacher frowned, but Emily smiled politely, the way her mother had taught her. Jacob, only 9, didn't have the words to explain what he felt. All he knew was that he hated the sound of his father's footsteps in the hallway. He hated the way his stomach twisted when Michael called his name. He hated how his laughter felt wrong inside their house, how quickly his joy turned into shame. So he grew quiet. At school, he whispered jokes to his friends and played soccer at recess, but at home, he became invisible. If he stayed out of sight, maybe, just maybe, he could avoid being scolded. But even invisibility wasn't always enough. One evening, Jacob spilled milk on the dinner table. His hand shook as he reached for a napkin, but Michael's glare froze him in place. "Can't you do anything right? You're clumsy just like your mother." Anna immediately reached over. "It's fine, I'll clean it." "Sit down," Michael snapped at her. Then, to Jacob, "You'll never get anywhere in life if you can't even handle a glass." Jacob bit his lip so hard it trembled, and Anna's heart broke as she watched her little boy swallow tears he wasn't allowed to cry. In those moments, Anna wanted to scream. She wanted to stand up, to shield her children, to shout back at the man who had turned their home into a battlefield of words. She didn't. Her place. "You're nothing without me, Anna. Who pays the bills? Who gives you this house? You'd be nothing if you walked out that door." And sometimes, when the loneliness felt unbearable, she almost believed him. What the neighbors saw was not this. They saw the manicured lawn, the polite children, the well-dressed couple at church on Sundays. When Anna brought brownies to the neighborhood potluck, people said things like, "You're so lucky to have Michael. He's such a provider." Or, "You two are the perfect couple. I hope my marriage is like yours someday." Anna smiled each time, her practiced smile, the one that didn't reach her eyes. Inside, she felt like she was slowly drowning. The worst part was the loneliness. Not the loneliness of being alone, because she rarely was, but the loneliness of being unseen. Every bruise wasn't physical, but emotional, the self-doubt, the guilt, the endless whisper that maybe it really was her fault. And when she saw the same shadows in her children's eyes, the ache inside her grew unbearable. One night, when Emily had gone to bed and Jacob had fallen asleep clutching his blanket, Anna sat in the kitchen with her head in her hands. The clock ticked softly, the refrigerator hummed, and the house felt too still. She whispered into the empty room, "God, please, let them be okay. Don't let them grow up believing they're not enough." Her voice broke, and for the first time in years, Anna cried openly, her sobs muffled in her arms so Michael wouldn't wake up. The Harris home looked perfect on the outside. But inside, it was filled with silence, sorrow, and 3 souls learning how to survive under the shadow of one man's need for control. And though none of them said it out loud, they all carried the same unspoken question in their hearts. How much longer can we live like this? It happened in late spring, on a day that had begun so normally. Sun filtered softly through the kitchen windows, the scent of coffee lingering in the air. Emily had just turned 14, and she had been working on a big school project, a portfolio of her drawings that her art teacher had encouraged her to submit to a regional competition. She hadn't told her father. For weeks, she had worked in secret, sketching late into the night when the house was quiet, slipping her papers back into the box beneath her bed before anyone noticed. For the first time in a long time, Emily felt excited. That morning, as she carefully packed her drawings into a folder for school, Michael walked into her room unannounced. "What's this?" he asked, pulling the folder from her desk before she could answer. Emily froze. "Dad, please, don't." But Michael was already flipping through the pages. His face twisted with disdain. "Seriously? This is what you've been wasting your time on? Doodles? You think this nonsense is worth something?" Emily's hand shook. "It's not nonsense, it's for a competition. My teacher said." "Your teacher doesn't know a thing about the real world," Michael snapped. He thrust the folder back at her, pages bending under his grip. You think colleges care about this garbage? You should be focusing on real subjects, not this childish hobby. Tears burned in Emily's eyes. But I worked so hard. Hard? Don't talk to me about hard work. You don't know the first thing about sacrifice. He jabbed a finger toward her. If you keep chasing this nonsense, you'll end up a nobody. Do you understand me? Anna rushed into the room, drawn by the shouting. Michael, please, she said, her voice trembling, don't talk to her like that. She's only a child. But Michael rounded on her, his eyes blazing. Oh, here we go. You always baby them, no wonder they're so weak. You ever stop to think, Anna, that maybe the reason Emily's so fragile is because of you? Anna's face flushed, but she stood her ground. No, Michael. She's fragile because you keep tearing her down. The words slipped out before she could stop them. For a moment, the house went still. Emily's breath caught. Jacob, standing in the hallway clutching his stuffed dinosaur, stared wide-eyed at his parents. Michael's jaw tightened. His face turned red. You ungrateful, he began, his voice shaking with rage. Anna lifted her chin. No. Enough. You don't get to keep doing this to them. You don't get to make them feel like they're nothing. It was the first time in years she had spoken to him like that. And Michael exploded. His voice thundered through the house, words sharp as knives. He accused Anna of disrespect, of ruining the family, of poisoning the children against him. You think you're the victim? Look at all I've given you. The house, the cars, the life you could never provide on your own. And this is how you repay me? Emily sobbed openly now, clutching her drawings to her chest. Jacob covered his ears, whispering, "Stop, stop, stop," under his breath. Anna stood in front of them, trembling but firm, as if her body itself was a shield. Michael, she said quietly, her voice breaking, you're destroying us. But Michael didn't hear. Or maybe he refused to. His rage filled every corner of the house, until all that was left was the sound of Emily's crying and Jacob's muffled pleas. Later that night, after the storm had passed and Michael had gone to bed muttering about betrayal, Anna sat with her children in Emily's room. Emily's drawings were bent, some pages smudged with tears, but she held them tightly in her lap. Anna wrapped her arms around both children, pulling them close. I'm so sorry, she whispered, her tears soaking Emily's hair. I should have stopped this sooner. I should have protected you. Emily clung to her, sobbing. Jacob buried his face in her side, silent but trembling. For the first time, Anna said out loud what she had only whispered in her prayers. This isn't love. What he's doing, it isn't love. The words hung in the air, fragile but powerful. And though they didn't know it yet, that night was the turning point. The moment when survival was no longer enough. Something had to change. The morning after the blow-up, the Harris home looked the same as always, perfectly polished from the outside. The lawn still shimmered with dew, the white siding gleamed in the sunlight, and Michael still strode out the front door in his pressed suit, briefcase in hand. To the neighbors, nothing seemed amiss. But inside, the air was heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Anna moved through the kitchen like a shadow, her hands automatically preparing breakfast she knew no one really wanted. Emily sat at the table, silent, her swollen eyes fixed on her bent folder of drawings. Jacob picked at his cereal without taking a single bite. No one spoke. No one had to. The echoes of the night before still lingered in every corner. When Michael's car finally pulled out of the driveway, Anna exhaled shakily. She looked at her children and whispered, "You're both staying home today." Emily blinked. But, school? Not today, Anna said, her voice steady but tired. Today we need to breathe. They spent the morning quietly. Emily retreated to her room with her sketches, while Jacob curled up on the couch with his dinosaur. Anna sat at the kitchen table, staring at her coffee until it went cold. Her mind replayed Michael's words over and over. Ungrateful. Weak. Nothing without me. But she also remembered her own words, the ones that had slipped out in the heat of the fight. You don't get to keep doing this to them. For years she had swallowed her voice, convinced it was safer that way. But last night, for the first time, she hadn't. And though Michael's rage had been terrifying, there had been something else too, something Anna hadn't felt in a long time. Strength. Later that afternoon, Anna found Emily sitting cross-legged on her bed, flipping through her drawings. "Sweetheart," Anna said softly, sitting down beside her. "May I see?" Emily hesitated, then slowly handed her the folder. The pages were creased and smudged, but the talent was undeniable. Graceful lines, thoughtful shading, entire worlds brought to life in graphite and ink. Anna's throat tightened. "Emily, these are beautiful." Emily shook her head. "Dad said they're worthless." Anna cupped her daughter's cheek. "Listen to me. What your father says, it isn't truth. He needs to tear people down to feel big. But your art? It's a gift. Don't let him take that from you." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. "But what if he's right? What if I'm not good enough?" Anna pulled her close, her own voice breaking. "You are more than enough. You always have been." And in that moment, Anna realized that maybe it wasn't too late, not for Emily, not for Jacob, and not even for herself. That evening, when the kids were asleep, Anna sat at the kitchen table with her laptop. Her hands trembled as she typed the words she had never dared to search before. Signs of narcissistic personality disorder. She scrolled through articles, her heart pounding. Every sentence felt like it had been written about Michael: grandiosity, lack of empathy, manipulation, gaslighting, control. For years she had blamed herself. Maybe she wasn't patient enough. Maybe she wasn't supportive enough. Maybe she wasn't good enough. But now, staring at those words, she felt something shift. It's not me. It's him. The thought terrified her. But it also lit a tiny flame of hope. Over the next few weeks, Anna began to notice more clearly what she had once excused. When Michael dismissed Jacob's fears, she no longer told herself, "He's just stressed." She saw it for what it was: cruelty. When he belittled Emily's dreams, she no longer whispered, "He just wants the best for her." She recognized it as control. And when he told her she'd be nothing without him, she no longer swallowed it whole. She recognized the lie. She wasn't nothing. Her children weren't nothing. And maybe, just maybe, they deserved more than this. One Saturday afternoon, while Michael was at work, Anna packed the kids into the car and drove them to the park. The sky was wide and blue, the air filled with the sounds of children laughing, parents calling, dogs barking. It felt like another world, one where people smiled without fear, where joy wasn't rationed. Emily sat under a tree sketching in her notebook, Jacob chased a soccer ball with other kids, and Anna watched them with tears in her eyes. For the first time in years, she thought, this is what life is supposed to feel like. And sitting there in the grass, the seed of a plan began to form. The Harris family wasn't free yet. Michael's shadow still loomed large over their home. But something had changed. Anna had seen the truth. Emily had begun to doubt her father's words. Jacob had started to laugh again, if only in small moments. The cracks in the glass were no longer hidden. They were widening. And soon, something would have to give. The hardest part about waking up to the truth wasn't the knowing, it was deciding what to do with it. Every day, Anna carried a battle inside her chest. On one side was fear, Michael's voice, sharp and commanding, telling her she would never survive without him. His warnings echoed in her head, you'd have nothing. The kids would suffer. No one would believe you. On the other side was love, the kind of love that tightened in her chest whenever she saw Emily wipe tears in secret, or Jacob flinch at his father's footsteps. That love whispered, if not for you, then for them. One quiet afternoon, while Michael was at work, Anna found herself sitting with her sister, Laura, at a small cafe on the edge of town. She hadn't seen Laura in months. Michael never liked her spending time with family. Laura took one look at Anna's tired face and frowned. You look like you haven't slept in weeks. What's going on? Anna hesitated. For years, she had hidden the truth. She had told her family everything was fine, spun stories about how busy Michael was, how stressful his job had become. But the words felt too heavy now, pressing against her chest until they spilled out. She told Laura everything. The constant criticism. The gaslighting. The way the kids walked on eggshells. The way she felt like a ghost in her own home. By the time she finished, Anna's hands were trembling around her coffee cup. Laura reached across the table and held her hand tightly. Anna, she said softly, that's abuse. What you just described, that's not marriage. That's not love. Anna's eyes filled with tears. But if I leave, what if I can't make it on my own? What if I fail the kids? Laura's grip tightened. You're already stronger than you think. And staying isn't protecting them, it's teaching them that this is normal. Do you want Emily growing up thinking it's okay for a man to treat her like that? Do you want Jacob believing love means fear? The words hit Anna like a tidal wave. She had thought about it before, but hearing it out loud shook her to her core. No. She didn't want that. That night, back at home, Anna lay awake listening to Michael's steady breathing beside her. Her heart raced with thoughts she had never allowed herself to consider seriously before. Where would they go? How would they live? Could she really do it? Fear clawed at her, but beneath it was something stronger, resolve. For the first time in years, she wasn't only dreaming of escape. She was planning it. The first step came in small, quiet actions. She started setting aside money, cash from grocery trips, small amounts tucked away in an envelope hidden in the laundry room. She gathered important documents, birth certificates, passports, school records, and placed them in a folder she kept beneath folded towels in the linen closet. She began to memorize the number of a local women's shelter, writing it down once then quickly shredding the paper so Michael wouldn't find it. Each action was tiny, almost invisible, but each one felt like a brick in the foundation of a new life. But guilt was never far away. One evening, while she helped Jacob with his homework, he looked up and asked, "Mom, do you think Dad loves us?" The question pierced her heart. She forced a smile. Of course he does. He just doesn't always know how to show it. But even as she said the words, she hated herself for them. Because deep down, she knew love wasn't supposed to feel like this. Love wasn't supposed to leave you broken and small. After the kids were in bed, Anna stood at the bathroom sink staring at her reflection. Her eyes were tired, but there was something else there too, something she hadn't seen in years. Determination. A week later, Michael returned home from work in one of his unpredictable moods, angry, restless, looking for a reason to pick a fight. The kids shrank into the background while Anna prepared dinner, her hands trembling as she stirred the pot. When he criticized the food, when he sneered at Jacob for slouching and mocked Emily for acting dramatic, Anna felt the old familiar fear rise in her chest. But this time, something inside her shifted. Instead of shrinking, she looked him straight in the eye. And though she didn't speak back, not yet, he noticed it. His brow furrowed. "What are you looking at?" he demanded. Anna didn't answer. But in her silence, she knew the truth. She was no longer afraid of the question. That night, after Michael had gone to bed, Anna stood in the hallway and looked into her children's rooms. Emily was curled around her sketchbook. Jacob clutched his dinosaur in his sleep. Anna pressed a hand to her chest, her eyes burning with tears. I will not let them grow up believing this is love. And for the first time, the decision felt real. She would leave. Not someday. Not in some distant dream. Soon. The night they left wasn't dramatic, but Anna would remember it for the rest of her life. Michael had gone out for drinks with colleagues, his voice slurred over the phone when he called to say he'd be late. Anna knew she had a window, maybe just a few hours, but enough. Her hands shook as she moved through the house, gathering the folder of documents, the envelope of saved cash, the small bags she had quietly packed over the last week. She had rehearsed this in her mind 1,000 times, but now that it was real, her chest felt tight, her heart a drumbeat of fear. She woke Emily first. The girl blinked sleepily, then sat up when she saw the look on her mother's face. "Mom, is it time?" she whispered. Anna nodded, her voice breaking. "Yes, sweetheart. It's time." Emily didn't hesitate. She clutched her sketchbook and got out of bed. Jacob was harder. When Anna woke him, he rubbed his eyes and mumbled, "Where are we going?" "A safe place," Anna said softly, tucking his dinosaur into his arms. "Somewhere we can breathe." He looked at her for a long moment, as if trying to read her face. Then he nodded. "Okay, Mom." They slipped out into the night, the cool air wrapping around them like a fragile promise. Anna's hand shook as she buckled Jacob into the back seat. Emily sat beside him, clutching her sketchbook with white knuckles. As she started the car, Anna whispered a prayer, something she hadn't done in years. "Please, God, keep us safe." The drive to the shelter felt endless. Every pair of headlights in the rearview mirror made her heart race, every turn of the road felt like it might lead them back to him. But at last, they pulled up to a modest brick building with a small sign that read, "Hope Haven Women's Shelter." Anna sat there for a moment, staring at the sign, unable to move. Emily reached over and squeezed her hand. "Mom, we made it." And with that, Anna exhaled a sob she hadn't realized she was holding. The first days at the shelter were a blur. There were intake forms, counseling sessions, whispered conversations with other women who carried the same haunted look in their eyes. Emily and Jacob were given their own beds in a shared room, small but safe. At night, Anna would sit between them, her arms around her children, listening to their breathing. For the first time in years, she slept without fear of footsteps storming down the hall. But freedom wasn't easy. The kids missed their home, their toys, the familiarity of their rooms. Jacob asked more than once, "When's Dad coming?" Anna's heart broke every time she had to answer, "He's not, sweetheart. Not here." Emily, too, struggled. Though she didn't say it often, Anna could see the guilt in her daughter's eyes, the feeling that maybe she had been the spark that lit their father's rage. One night, Emily whispered, "What if he's right? What if we're just weak?" Anna pulled her close, tears filling her eyes. "No, Emily. He was wrong. We were never weak, we were surviving. And now we're free." Michael, of course, didn't make it easy. He called, he sent messages, he showed up at the shelter once, pounding on the locked doors and demanding to see his family. Anna stood trembling in the hallway as staff members calmly turned him away, reminding her that she was safe here, that he could not hurt them now. But the sound of his voice shouting outside still echoed in her mind long after he was gone. Freedom hurt. It hurt to see her children cry at night, to explain to Jacob why they couldn't just go home, to watch Emily wrestle with guilt and anger she didn't deserve. It hurt to think of the years they had lost, the pieces of themselves Michael had chipped away. But every morning, when Anna woke up and saw her children sleeping peacefully, truly peacefully, she knew they had done the right thing. Slowly, little by little, healing began to take root. At the shelter, counselors encouraged Emily to keep drawing. One afternoon, she pinned her sketches to the wall above her bed. For the first time, she didn't hide them. Jacob began to laugh again, real laughter, unguarded and bright, when he played soccer with other boys in the shelter yard. And Anna, she began to remember herself. She signed up for a community workshop in interior design, just a few hours a week. Sitting at a table with swatches of fabric and color wheels, she felt that old spark again, the girl she used to be flickering back to life. It wasn't easy. Some days the grief of what they had endured felt overwhelming. Some nights Anna lay awake, wondering if she was strong enough to keep going. But each time doubt crept in, she looked at her children, Emily sketching with her tongue poking out in concentration, Jacob running across the yard with his dinosaur in hand, and she knew. They were healing. She was healing. One evening, sitting on the shelter's porch, Anna watched the sunset with Emily and Jacob beside her. The sky glowed pink and gold, soft and wide. Jacob leaned his head against her arm. Emily quietly slipped her sketchbook into her lap, showing a new drawing, a house with a wide porch, flowers blooming in the yard, 3 figures standing together, smiling. Anna's eyes filled with tears. "That's us, Mom," Emily said softly. Anna kissed the top of her daughter's head. "Yes, sweetheart. That's us. And one day, we'll have that house." For the first time, Anna believed it. Freedom hurt. But it was healing them, too. And that was worth everything. Months had passed since Anna and her children left Michael behind. Life wasn't perfect, far from it. But it was theirs. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. They had moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment with peeling wallpaper and creaky floors, but Emily had painted her walls with murals of flowers and sunlight, while Jacob proudly taped up his dinosaur drawings. Anna had sewn curtains out of discounted fabric she found at a thrift shop, and when the sunlight poured in each morning, it felt like a blessing. The space was humble, but it was safe. And in that safety, their hearts began to grow again. One evening, as Anna prepared dinner, spaghetti from a box, nothing fancy, she heard laughter in the living room. Emily was sprawled across the couch sketching, while Jacob built a tower of blocks that wobbled dangerously. "Careful," Emily warned, giggling. "I'm the strongest builder in the world," Jacob declared proudly, just before the tower collapsed in a heap. Instead of tears, he burst out laughing. And Emily laughed with him. Anna stood in the doorway, wooden spoon in hand, her throat tightening. It was such a simple moment. So ordinary. But to Anna, it felt like a miracle. Because in their old life, laughter had been rare. Fear had been louder than joy. Now, joy was winning. Later that night, after the kids were in bed, Anna sat at the small kitchen table with a cup of tea. She opened her journal, a gift from one of the counselors at the shelter, and began to write. The words came slowly at first, then flowed like a river breaking through a dam. "I thought leaving Michael would destroy me. For so long, I believed his voice, telling me I was nothing without him, that I couldn't survive on my own. I thought my children would never recover. But tonight, I heard them laugh. Really laugh. And in that sound, I knew, we are healing." She paused, her pen hovering over the page, before adding, "I don't know what tomorrow will bring. But I know this, we are free. And freedom, no matter how messy, is worth everything." The next day, Anna drove Emily to a local art exhibit where children could submit their work. Emily clutched her sketchbook nervously as they walked through the gallery, eyes wide at the rows of paintings and drawings. She had submitted one of her own, the drawing of a house with a wide porch, flowers in the yard, and 3 figures smiling. When Anna saw it displayed on the wall among the others, her breath caught in her chest. "That's beautiful," someone murmured nearby. Emily's cheeks flushed pink, and she glanced at her mother. Anna squeezed her hand and whispered, "You're incredible." For the first time, Emily believed it. Meanwhile, Jacob had joined a local soccer team. He wasn't the best player, he often forgot which direction the ball was supposed to go, but his laughter rang out across the field every time he ran. Watching him play, Anna realized something profound: her children weren't broken. Yes, they carried scars. Yes, healing would take time. But they were resilient. And so was she. Weeks later, Anna received a small interior design project through a community contact. It wasn't much, just helping redesign a friend's living room, but as she worked, laying out fabric samples and sketching ideas, she felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. When the project was done, the client hugged her and said, "Anna, you have such a gift." That night, Anna sat at her table, her children asleep, and whispered to herself, "I am more than what he told me I was." And for the first time, she believed it, too. On a warm spring evening, Anna, Emily, and Jacob sat on the balcony of their little apartment, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. Jacob leaned against her side, clutching his dinosaur. Emily sketched the horizon in her notebook. Mom, Emily said softly, do you think we'll ever have that house I drew? With the porch and the flowers? Anna smiled, her eyes misting. I don't know when, sweetheart. But I know this, we'll have peace. And peace feels like home. Emily's lips curved into a small smile, and Jacob nodded sleepily. For the first time in years, Anna felt something she hadn't dared to feel. Hope. Anna's story is not unique. All across America, families live under the shadow of narcissistic abuse, silent, unseen, often doubted. But freedom is possible. Healing is possible. If you or someone you love is trapped in that cycle, know this, you are not alone. And you are stronger than the voice that tells you otherwise. Anna's journey reminds us that even after years of control and fear, joy can return. Laughter can return. Hope can return. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is take that first step toward freedom. And sometimes, the most beautiful thing you can hear is the sound of your children laughing again. If you are among these types of people or you know someone who is suffering with it, please share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might give courage to someone else who feels trapped.